I would like to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones. Yeah. I would like to welcome, Becky, are we live?
We're live.
Okay, look, good. I want to welcome everybody to the Brevard City Council regular meeting of June 2nd. And this is amazing. This is, I think, the biggest crowd I have ever seen show up for a city council meeting. So it's like, wow, guys, I love it. Hey, this is what local government and participation is all about. I just love it. Anyways, I will officially call us to order, and as we start, I want to introduce the people sitting up here. On my far right is, well, besides all the people sitting and standing really on the far right, but here at the table is our city attorney, Mac McKellar. Next to Mac is City Councilman Lauren Wise. Next to Lauren is Councilwoman Pamela Holder. Next to Pamela is Councilman Mac Morrow. I'm Mayor Maureen Kopoloff. On my immediate left is our city clerk, Denise Hodgson. Next to Denise is Mayor Pro Tem and Councilman Gary Daniel. Next to Gary is Councilman Aaron Baker. And on my far left is our city manager, Wilson Hooper. And with that, I would like to ask Pastor Kenneth Albright from the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd. Pastor Ken, would you please come and give our invocation?
I'm Pastor Ken Albright from the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd, and glad to be in this community for good. And I know that you all are working for good in this community. And just wanted to share a few words in getting started. And as I was looking at the agenda tonight, I thought you all have a lot more listening to do than you do talking. And I was thinking about that a little bit. That and there's a lot of advice for listening in the Proverbs section of Scripture. And in Proverbs 12, verse 15, it says, "Fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to advice." Let us pray. Lord God, as this city council and its mayor gather this evening, open their ears. Help them to be good and solid listeners to the many voices and perspectives that are here. To those voices that will share, some of them voices that have not been heard enough and not respected enough and not prized enough. We pray, Lord God, that your Spirit dwell in this place this evening, that what is done here will be for the good of all, and that this place may be a beacon on the hill, that these people may reflect your goodness and your light and hope for the world. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pastor Ken, before you leave, tell us a little bit about the Lutheran Church.
Well, the Lutheran Church, I'm a part of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and about 2.5 million members in this country, and it's the largest Protestant denomination in the world. And so we believe in, our worship is much like worship in many churches, and it follows the tradition that has been followed in the Jewish tradition and into the Christian church. And we celebrate Holy Communion every Sunday, and we strive to welcome all people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, if everyone would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, honor, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you have a quorum. All members are present.
Council, You have the draft agenda. Are there any proposed modifications to the agenda?
Mayor, I would like to add a second closed session for personnel, please.
Okay. Any additional modifications? Do I have a motion to approve the modified agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Council, you've got the minutes of the May 19th, 2025 regular meeting. Any corrections or changes to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. At this time, we will have public comments. All right. The public is invited to speak during public comment at this time on any topic unless it is a public hearing item on this agenda. And we do have one public hearing on the zoning for the inn at Brevard. So that is a separate speaking time. Anyone who wants to speak must register with the city clerk, which is what this is. When it is your turn, step to the podium in front of city council, state your name and address clearly, limit comments to 3 minutes or less, and avoid repetition. I will give you a warning when you have 30 seconds left. Direct comments to the full council, not to an individual council member or to staff. All right, and we will call people up in the order that they signed. Our first speaker is Carol Moore.
Thank you. I'm Carol Moore, and I reside at 264 Resada Drive in Brevard. I moved here with my husband in 2011 after I retired as an attorney employed by the state of North Carolina to work and support the public schools in Pitt County. As an attorney, I am aware of and took an oath to support and defend the U.S. Constitution. I am alarmed about what is happening to the rule of law at the federal level, about the failure to accept the separation of powers, about the failure to respect the right of due process, and the right to peaceably assemble, and the right to free speech without fear of reprisals. Therefore, I am especially grateful to our mayor, a retired naval officer who also understands the Constitution and also took an oath to support and defend it. I was present at the courthouse this spring at the 2 largest gatherings of other equally concerned citizens. I was proud that our mayor spoke at each of those gatherings. I recently heard another public speaker tell this council that those gatherings were composed mostly of outside agitators. This is not so. I saw members of my Brevard congregation, members of my husband's Brevard church, friends from my immediate neighborhood, people known to me from community agencies and activities, and people familiar to me from being seen downtown or at the grocery store or other local businesses. So I am here to thank our mayor for making Brevard a town which supports the U.S. Constitution and our rights as citizens to gather peacefully, to speak out, to be afforded due process, and to live under the rule of law. Thank you to Mayor Kopoloff and to the council.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Our next speaker is Joy Shin. Joy, you're speaking at the inn at Brevard. Okay, you're on the wrong list, but I'm going to move you to the other list. Okay, all right. Okay, so our next speaker is Lisa Rodkey.
Hi, my name is Lisa Rodkey, and I live at 420 Whitmire Street in Brevard. And I want to thank you all on the City Council on behalf of my late partner for the City of Brevard proclaiming June as Pride Month and supporting gays and lesbians. My partner and I moved here in 2007, and we're very happy to find a small town that was so friendly and welcoming to lesbian couples. I also want to say a big, big thank you for the new configuration of downtown parking and the new kinds of disabled parking. My partner was disabled. She passed away 2 years ago, but she used a wheelchair for the last 20 years. And we had a Prius, and so I folded up the wheelchair in the back, and so she could transfer from the passenger seat into the wheelchair, except those old disabled parking spaces on the corners of the street. In order to get the wheelchair out and near her, we were in the way of traffic of both streets. And it was so dangerous, and I am so, so thankful that you were visionary in putting in the new type of disabled parking. And I know that it takes up parking spaces, and I know that a whole lot of people are complaining, but we want to be able to age in place, and Transylvania County has the highest per capita of residents over 65. They're going to need wheelchairs sometime themselves, and they're going to be really thankful you all were visionary. So thank you so much. Don't worry about the complainers.
Thank you, Ms. Rodkey. Our next speaker is Ashley Hart.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I wanted to stand before you today and talk about my experience at the White Squirrel Festival. With having such a little police force, it's really hard to maintain such a festival to the magnitude it was, especially when you're considering monitoring the social district boundaries and the city and the festival goers. But I'm going to set that aside tonight to talk about something that is urgent in this community. On Sunday, May 25th, I'm sure you guys are all aware of the violent attack that happened at Franklin Park in the bathroom. 7 boys lured in and attacked and robbed a 14-year-old boy, sending him to the hospital. 5 days pass and we hear nothing but crickets. No charges, no arrest. So Braden's mother, Michelle, and I, we went from agency to agency to agency to agency, asking the same question. Why had there not been any charges filed, and why hasn't there been any arrests? Later that same day, Brevard Police Department filed charges. But this delay raises serious concerns about the speed and transparency of justice in our own town. Now, this is it's in the Department of the Juvenile Justice System's hands. Let's see how serious they take this brutal attack. Last Saturday, on May 31st, I witnessed the actual heart of Brevard at a car meet organized for Braden and Michelle. Nearly 200 citizens were there, standing in solidarity, declaring violence and bullying have no place here. Their presence was a powerful reminder of our community's strength and compassion. I'd hoped to have seen some of you there, but I did not. I know you're busy people, but your absence was felt. This isn't just about Braden. It's about every young person in our town. And silence allows injustices to grow, and inaction sends the wrong message.
30 seconds, Ms. Hart.
Our agencies must act swiftly and decisively to ensure justice is served to prevent further future attacks. I urge you to prioritize public safety and hold agencies accountable. Braden and Michelle deserve justice, and our community deserves better. Justice for Braden.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. Our next speaker is Rodney Lux.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. My name is Rodney Locks. I live at 187 South Rice Street. Last week, we had fun at the White Squirrel Weekend. Most of the people who came, I call participants. They came to enjoy themselves, visit, and go back home. Monday was Memorial Day. We gathered to remember and honor those who sacrificed their lives so we can have the freedom we now enjoy. Today, I would like to remind you of those I say have standing. These are the ones who call Brevard home, who were born and raised here, raised their children here, and who want to have them come back. These are the people who have made sacrifices since the mills closed in 2000 to make Brevard the envy of Western North Carolina. These are the people who have come before you to tell you they have reached a point where they can no longer afford to live in their hometown. This appraisal highlights the inequities of a legally approved displacement, replacement, and revitalization process that puts most of the annual financial burden on the working poor, the low income, and the middle class residents. If you don't invest in economic development and bring in high-paying jobs, the same thing will happen again in 2029 and every year thereafter. Now is the time to change direction, not stay the course. Now is the time to focus on community and residents. Brevard City Council needs to commit to improving the quality of life of its residents in tangible, measurable ways now, not in the future. People are suffering now and should not have to sacrifice even more while you plan. This budget is an opportunity to commit to change. You and we are at a tipping point. Each year you delay or put off recognizing how your residents are impacting makes next year get worse. Tweaking the budget to reduce tax income to 2 cents is an affront because we know you can do better. Think about it. You can still vote on June the 16th.
30 seconds. Our next speaker is Dale Nash.
Hi, this will be short. I'm Dale Nash. I live on Brevard Street, across the street from where this development is being proposed. Well, I guess it's going to happen. And I just, I kind of feel like I'm saying the same thing in different ways. But I had an opportunity to go to the planning board's meeting since I was last here at the city council. And I was very impressed that there's citizens who really don't have a dog in the fight and who don't really have anything that would diminish their ability to be objective, who give time to plan. Planning's been kind of elusive to me sometimes in my life, but I do better when I plan ahead. I think we all do. And I think I really feel good about the idea that people who are willing to give of their time and serve on a planning committee, I trust their ability to configure our future more than I do entrepreneurs. So I'm just here to say, let's really listen carefully to our planning committee as we move forward. We're going to have to move forward. We're going to have to the development is inevitable. We can't keep this place a secret. It's too wonderful. But I think development in a responsible way is what I'm hoping for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nash. The next speaker is Deborah Nash.
Hi. My name is Deborah Nash. I live at 1656 Brevard Street. I have lived here for 39 years. If the proposed building on Probart goes through, besides clear cutting, loss of animal habitat, increased traffic, the city benefits from increased revenue but has to spend more money on water, sewage, trash, and recycling pickup, and optional non-renewable natural gas. Because someone decided that my half of Probart Street would be in the county rather than city, I pay more for water, have no city sewer, no trash, or recycling pickup, cannot vote on most issues, and yet my property taxes keep going up and up. I did not move here to have trees cut down and look at 70-plus high-income, high-value homes. I love the trees and plants, the wildlife, the peacefulness, and slower pace. If I wanted to live in a suburb with nothing but houses and cement or asphalt, I could have lived anywhere else. Please do not destroy the only land left around the Probart area of Brevard. What happened to the Unified Development Ordinance to improve the environment, including trees and historic resources? If anything has to be built, we need low-income and disabled housing, but not on the only natural habitat left on Probart Street. Apparently, we are slow learners. Once this planet is destroyed, where do we go? The ozone is worse. The planet is hotter than it has ever been. Those of us that recycle cannot make up for the rest that do not. Once the wildlife has died, we cannot bring them back. Once the trees have been uprooted, it would take 3 lifetimes to get them back to the size they are now, if there were any place to plant them. I am totally opposed to this development with all my heart. It is the wrong thing for Brevard to do. I will close with the words of the first verse of a song called Tiny Boxes by Pete Seeger, written in 1963. It is a political satire about the development of suburbia. Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes, little boxes, little boxes, all the same. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Nash. Our next speaker is Harvey Sankey.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name's Harvey Sankey. I live on 51 Lake House Trail here in Brevard. The pastor's words this evening about listening are very appropriate at this meeting. I have spoken in the past along with others, like my friend Rodney Locks and some of the people in the Rosenwald community about the burden of the 8.3% property tax increase on the middle to low-income residents of Brevard. And when you vote tonight on this budget, it doesn't have to be unanimous, okay? There may be a couple people on the city council that may not think we shouldn't pass this 8.3% tax increase. Some of your middle and low-income constituents are going to pay 20 to 30% more in the property taxes with the revenue-neutral rate of 33 cents per $100. And you want to add another 8.3% to that. Like I said, this vote doesn't have to be unanimous. You have some constituents here that voted for you, okay? It's your responsibility for these, to look at these low-income, poor people who can't afford this property tax. I'm also surprised that the mayor and city council hasn't mentioned a property tax relief program that is offered by the state of North Carolina. This should have been brought to our attention weeks ago when you were talking about the 8.3% tax increase. This property tax, North Carolina offers a property tax relief for low-income individuals, primarily through the programs for seniors and disabled homeowners. There are 3 of them, but I'll concentrate on the one for elderly or disabled homestead exclusion. Who is eligible? Individuals 65 or older or totally and permanently disabled. Income limit. Your
30
income,
seconds.
including your spouse's, must not exceed $37,900 annually for the 2024 tax year. How it works. It excludes the greater of $25,000 or 50% of the home's value from taxation. Application, generally this is a one-time application unless there are changes in residency or qualifying status. I urge the mayor to include this information along with the tax bill when it's sent out to all the taxpayers here in Brevard, to let them know this is available to them, especially if you're going to increase their taxes by 8.3%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sankey. Our next speaker is James Carley.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you for your public service today, and thank you for everyone here for turning out. As you mentioned at the beginning, I love seeing civic participation. I just wanted to say, in dark times, both Pride and Juneteenth represent lights of reason and common sense. It is reasonable to acknowledge that gay folks have always existed in every society, and that Black Americans descended from the stolen Africans have experienced 400 years or more of injustice in this country. It is common sense to acknowledge their contributions to a free and creative and interesting society, and recognizing Juneteenth, the day that the last enslaved black folks among us, black folks in Texas learned of their emancipation after the Civil War. By recognizing people among us who, for most of history, have dwelt in the shadows under pain of violence and murder, we give them a breath of life, freedom, too long denied by hate and bigotry. Welcoming and including LGBT and black folks in our communities and our friends and our families and neighbors increases freedom, opportunity, and prosperity for us all. Thank you for this important and common sense declaration of June as Pride Month in the city of Brevard, and for acknowledging Juneteenth this month. So thank you all for your service, and thank you all here, citizens, for turning out today.
Thank you, Mr. Carley. Our next speaker is Peter Offen.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor. My name is Peter Offen. I live at 67 Willow Drive here in Brevard. Today, I stand before you in support of the proclamations declaring June as Pride Month and recognizing Juneteenth. It's vital that we acknowledge and celebrate these communities, their contributions to our great nation, and our continued dedication to the work that still lies ahead. There have always been, since the founding of our imperfect nation, there have always been Americans who stood where I stand now, committed to moving this country forward, advancing equality for all, and striving to address the injustices woven into our nation's beginnings. These Americans sacrificed so much in hope of a brighter future for everyone. They fought, even against their own brother, to secure the right of all people to live free from bondage, to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. This month, we honor that progress by celebrating Juneteenth. But the fight for equality did not end with emancipation. In truth, we've seen that it only just began. Since that historic day, the struggle for civil rights has continued for Black Americans, for women, for gay and trans Americans, and for many others. This fight goes beyond confronting blatant prejudice. It requires us to repair the deep flaws in the very fabric of our country. Through this journey, there have always been those who stood in opposition, those who resist equality as if granting others equal rights somehow diminishes their own. They have used fear, hate, and even religion as a tool to hold back progress. Yet, still, we march forward. There are those who would take Brevard back, but today we stand together and say no. We will not go back, no matter the resistance. We will keep moving forward. We will continue to work to heal the wounds in the fabric of our city, our community, and our country. We will continue to stand up for all Americans, all Transylvanians, and all residents of Brevard. Today, with this proclamation, we reaffirm our commitment, we reaffirm our shared values, and our unwavering support for justice and equality. We will not go back. We will go forward together for Transylvania. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. All right, our next speaker is Warren Johnson, but I see that is also the inn at Brevard. So I believe that is the public hearing, so I'm going to move that to the other sheet also. So we've got two that are moving there. All right, and that is the end of public comments. Thank you, everybody. And with that, we are going to move into our certificates and proclamations. All right, and at this point, I would like to ask the Mary C. Jenkins Center Board of Directors to please join me up here. Any or all, or send Randy if you all don't want to stand up, but I think Edith, Karen? All right, yeah, there's some more, okay. Come on, ladies. Okay. All right. And it's important, the reason I really want them to come up here is because our Juneteenth celebration, these are the folks that do all the work. These are the folks that step up and organize the big Juneteenth celebration, which every year has gotten better and better. And it takes an incredible amount of commitment and work. And I want you to see the people who put that work in and really put that on for our entire community. So thank you all for doing that. Proclamation number 2025-19, Juneteenth. Whereas President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, declaring the slaves in Confederate territory free, paving the way for the passing of the 13th Amendment, which formally abolished slavery in the United States of America. Whereas word about the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation was delayed 2.5 years to June 19, 1865, in reaching authorities and African Americans in the South and Southwestern United States. Whereas Emancipation Day observations are held on different days in different states in the South and Southwest and in other parts of the nation. Whereas June 19th has a special meaning to African Americans and is called Juneteenth, combining the words June and 19th, and has been celebrated by the African American community for over 150 years. Whereas the annual Juneteenth celebration in the city of Brevard this year will include a guest speaker, Juneteenth movie clip, a play performance taking place on Thursday evening at the Mary C. Jenkins Center, an afternoon celebration on Saturday, June 21st at the Silverstein Memorial Playground, and combined church services on Sunday, June 22nd at Silverstein Memorial Playground. And whereas Juneteenth is an official City of Brevard holiday, and city offices will be closed on June 19th, now therefore I, Maureen Kopoloff, Mayor of the City of Brevard, North Carolina, do hereby declare June 19th, 2025 as Juneteenth in the City of Brevard, and urge all citizens to become more aware of the significance of this celebration in African American history and in the heritage of our nation and city. I hope everybody can take time to join us for at least one of our Juneteenth activities. And I am very proud that I believe this is the second, or is it the third year that we have actual, that the city has had as an official city holiday. Is it our third?
This is our
Third. It's our third year. We believe in it so strongly that it is a day that we give city employees off so that they can have time. Because remembering our history, all of our history, our diverse history, is important. And we can't forget that is part of what made our country. And it is so important for our young folks to really learn that history. And so at this point, I am going to ask Randy Lytle, who is, I think, the chairman, president of the Mary C. Jenkins Board, to give us a little more detail about the events that we're going to have. Randy?
Absolutely. Just want to say thank you for the opportunity, Mayor and City Council, for this opportunity to come up and stand up and talk about Juneteenth. It is a very important holiday for us. This will be our 5th year of putting this on, and in talking with Dr. Garrison, who's going to be presenting on Thursday, the 19th, at the Jenkins Center, along with the meal and some other activities going on. He indicated to me that he's from Charlotte. And I told him what we were doing, and he said they don't have anything like this in Charlotte. He said it sounds amazing, and we're probably the only ones that do it to the magnitude that we're trying to do. Like he said before, it has grown every year. We're gonna have multiple food vendors out there. We have lots of arts and crafts and people who sell things and live music, 3 or 4 bands. And so it's gonna be a great time. We certainly invite each and every one of you to come on just for a couple hours, whatever you want to do, and enjoy the festivities that we have planned. Again, Thursday the 19th is going to be the guest speaker, Dr. Donnie Garris, with some light food. You know, food is always good. Saturday the 21st is when the Preach Festival will happen with the live music and all of that going on. And we're going to have a dance, flash mob dance. That's going to be. If I'm not mistaken, I think Tyree's going to be heading that up. He's got plenty of time to learn boots on the ground. Learn boots on the ground. That's what we're going to be doing. Sunday, like you mentioned before, is also a combined church services held at the playground as well. So thanks again. Hope to see you all there, maybe for a few minutes. Anyway, thank you very much.
All right, let's get a photo here, everybody. Move in a little. Let's get a good group photo. Thank you, everybody, and I look forward to all the events. All right, our next proclamation is on Pride Month, and I believe we've got representatives here from the NAACP LGBTQ community, and I'm not sure, do we have anybody from the Rainbow Coalition? Are they able to make it? Oh, come on up, come on up. Let's have,
Well, I'm wearing the
first for Lisa, so come on.
I wanted somebody else.
All right. You know, this is really a special day because, you know, we are recognizing, you know, groups that have been marginalized in our community. We are recognizing communities whose history has not been celebrated and recognized and acknowledged. And it is so important that we, as a country, build on all of that history, that understand that history, and that we acknowledge and accept all people within our community, because that is what Brevard is about. We are an inclusive, we are diverse, and we are a welcoming community. And so it is my pleasure to proclaim Proclamation number 2025 TAC 20, LGBTQ Pride Month. Whereas the City of Brevard is committed to promoting a welcoming and accepting environment for all its residents. And whereas the LGBTQIA+ community has made significant contributions to the social, cultural, and economic fabric of the city. Whereas June is widely recognized as LGBTQIA+ Pride Month, commemorating the Stonewall Uprising of 1969, which marked a pivotal moment in the fight for LGBTQ rights and liberation. Whereas Pride Month serves as an opportunity to honor the LGBTQ community, celebrate their achievements, and raise awareness about the challenges they continue to face. Whereas the community needs to foster an environment of understanding, acceptance, and support for all individuals, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. Whereas the city of Brevard embraces and it values the principles of equality, justice, and respect for all its residents. Now therefore, I, Maureen Koploff, Mayor of the City of Brevard, do hereby proclaim the month of June as LGBTQIA+ Pride Month. I encourage all residents to engage in educational opportunities and events that promote understanding, respect, and acceptance of the LGBTQ community and express support for our LGBTQ individuals, their families, and allies, and acknowledge the ongoing work needed to achieve full equality and justice. So, thank you. I want to give an opportunity. We have several very active groups in our community. We have the Rainbow Alliance, and we have I'm probably going to get the title wrong, the NAACP LGBTQ Committee. Working, I was close.
We get it wrong all the time.
Okay. Well, how about telling our public a little bit about those groups?
So as a part of the NAACP town hall that came together in February, we separated into various things that were very important to the people in the community. And one of those groups was the LGBTQIA group, and I am heading that. One of the things that we're doing in the community, and we have identified almost 200 allies in this community right now. If I could ask who's here to support this proclamation tonight? Last year, there was no one. So, we're making progress.
Rainbow Alliance, do you wish to say anything?
Well, the Rainbow Alliance is the gay organization for gays, for trans, for, I don't know about LGBTQ, don't know all the letters, but mainly it's for gay, trans, and supporters in Brevard. And it's been active for a long time. It had a rest during COVID and then reactivated. And it's great that I think that we have a gay organization in the city, and that now NAACP also is a part of it. It couldn't be better.
Let's give our celebrate.
Yay.
Thank you all, and thank you everybody for coming with such a wonderful show of support for our community. I really appreciate it. Thank you all.
I added those names.
Did he get?
I think he got it.
Okay.
Did he get the right ones?
Better behave, Fred.
You know, guys, you couldn't stay for the entire meeting now. You don't have to leave. You know?
Maybe out by midnight.
Property taxes.
Oh, okay.
I'm right with you, Harvey. I'm right with you.
Joy, Shine,
We haven't even gotten to the good
Warren.
stuff.
He had Marion, but it's Warren Johnson.
Yeah.
Carolina. Oh, yeah.
No, you do not. Anyone can speak.
All right, we are going to move on to the next item on our agenda, and that is our public hearing. We'll give everybody just a minute to make their way out the door. All right, our public hearing today is on the proposed amendment to the official zoning map of the city of Brevard, the Inn at Brevard Conditional Zoning District. And I see Aaron Bland, our Assistant Planning Director, is going to be presenting this.
Yes, thank you. A little upset. More people don't want to hear me talk about conditional zoning.
We want to hear you talk about it, Aaron.
Yeah.
So we have received an application for a conditional zoning district for the Inn at Brevard property located at 315 East Main Street. The property is currently zoned residential mixed use, and the request is for a conditional zoning district with an RMX base as its base district. The Inn at Brevard has several elements of its operations that are pre-existing non-conforming to the current standards of the Unified Development Ordinance. Most especially the fact that overnight accommodations such as inns are not allowed in the RMX zoning district. Those site characteristics that are non-conforming, plus the fact that it is a local historical landmark, made conditional rezoning a appropriate tool to ensure it has zoning compliance for continued use of the site while also remaining compatible with the surrounding land uses and properties. This request was sent to the Technical Review Committee. The only department with any real comment was the wastewater treatment plant. They had 2 suggestions, and both of those have been incorporated into the conditional district that is attached to your staff report. Specifically, those are ensuring that the grease trap in the restaurant is appropriately sized and a clay sink trap for the proposed pottery studio. Staff believes that the continued operation of the inn as its historical uses, a boutique inn with a restaurant and things like that, is compatible with surrounding properties and supports aspects of the comprehensive land use plan as noted in the staff report. And additionally, the future land use map has this area as a traditional neighborhood character area, and RMX is an applicable zoning district for that character area, so it is in line with the future land use map. The planning board considered this request at their April meeting and unanimously recommended in favor. They had 2 recommended conditions. The first is just those wastewater treatment plant recommendations, and then the second was a 10-foot wide landscaping buffer to be installed on the south property line, which is an adjacent property that's residential in use. And so one of the things I wanted to walk you through before we open up the hearing is the use matrix for the property. You have this in your packet twice, but this version, it's attachment 5, that has the highlights, shows the differences between the proposed conditional district and the typical residential mixed-use district. So a couple of uses have been removed to sort of compensate for the request that a few be added. Most particularly overnight accommodations, as I mentioned, would be added as permitted. Restaurant would be added as permitted. And then, like I said, several are being removed that are not compatible with the site or the surrounding land uses to sort of compensate for that fact. The other one added is a special event venue, so they can do things like weddings, different sorts of events on site, things like that. So again, that's broken out independently to show you those differences as attachment 5, but it's also worked into the actual conditional district that is attachment 7. So just in case anyone was a little unclear why that was in there twice. The planning board also submits to you their consistency and reasonableness statement. That's attachment 6 and on the screen right now, explaining why this is an appropriate request and why they recommend it in favor. There's two other things I want to point out for your consideration. The first is the parking that is on Franklin Street, the angled parking that faces the building. That is unique in town. We don't have anything else like that with that sort of off the street right of way, but on-street parking in a sense. And so that's something that is a notable feature that's non-conforming with current ordinance requirements. And then the second is that there is a undeeded or unopened right of way between this property and its adjacent property, the residential property. And so that is one thing that I would expect to be resolved in the near future, if this were to go through, is that abandonment of that small alley. It's only about 20 feet wide. It's never been used, never been accepted by the city. But it is platted that way right now and could cause a little bit of, I don't want to say complications, but the site plan that's submitted does not, it anticipates that being closed and usable space as opposed to what it is now, which is actually sort of no man's land. It's not part of their actual property. So we cannot permit any work to be done in it. But as I said, I would expect that request to come before you in the near future to officially abandon that right of way so it could be folded into the neighboring properties. So just two little quirks I want to make the council aware of as you consider this. But that's all I have to present. We do have the applicant here as well, if you would like to hear from them.
All right, we'll open the hearing. Do I have a motion to officially open the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
The hearing is open. Okay, I will read the rules for a public hearing. The public is asked to adhere to the following guidelines for the public hearing. Register with the city clerk by printing your name, address, and phone number on the sign-in sheet, which we have. When it is your turn, step to the podium in front of city council. State your name and address clearly. Be concise, avoid repetition, and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. Direct comments to the full council, not to an individual council member or to staff. This is a time to provide your comments, but not to ask questions. A public hearing is not an appropriate venue for a question and answer session. Designate a spokesperson for a large group, and each person may speak once for a specific public hearing. Our first speaker is Marjorie Lillard.
Hello, I'm Marjorie Lillard, and I live at 79 Franklin Street. So I actually view the parking lot that's on Franklin, and I just have concerns about what will happen with that. It's actually a good thing for us to have because Franklin Street, especially during events like White Squirrel, gets parked up and it's very difficult to navigate. We also have people that park at the end of our street, and when you turn onto Franklin from French Broad, that's an issue. So I'm hoping that with large events that there won't be parking on Franklin as this goes forward. I want to say that we're very happy to have the building restored, returned to being an inn because it's been vacant and kind of an eyesore for the community. So this is a good thing. It's a historic property, and we're looking forward to having it restored to his historic look. But the other one thing that I wanted to ask about is the annex, and I understand that that will be turned into housing, and I'm curious as to how that works into the whole plan for things if the current purchasers decide that they don't want to do this 5 years down the road, what happens to that annex property? So those are my only concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lillard. Our next speaker is Joy Shind.
Is it all right if I have my husband come up as well, even though he's...
Absolutely.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having us here, Mayor and council members. I'm Joy Shind. This is my husband, Brian Shind, and we are under contract to purchase the Inn at Brevard. We just wanted to put a face to the name. We just wanted to say hello to everyone and explain a little bit of what our vision is. First of all, We've been to Brevard 5 times now. We've been in this region quite often. We're both into outdoors activities. Love the area and have really fallen in love with Brevard. It's absolutely an amazing town. And we know that we would be coming in as outsiders, but we would look very forward to joining into the community as soon as possible. I run hospitality currently. I have Airbnb properties and I run them and we're selling them because I love it so much that I want to be on site. So we will live in the annex, on site at the inn, and we would like to hone in our skills and continue to do hospitality. The other thing that we would like to mention is how important the history of the home is. We fully intend to restore accurately. We've looked into some different construction companies, and we understand how important keeping the history of the building and restoring in a respectful way that brings this landmark back to its former glory. So that's all I have to say. Did I drag you up here for nothing? No. Okay. That's all.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome to Brevard. Our next speaker is Warren Johnson.
Thank you for your service, for your time, your effort. My name's Warren Johnson. I own the residence north of the inn at 22 Lakeview in Franklin Park. How many in here are natives? Born and raised? Kindergarten through Brevard College? Not a lot of us left. You're looking at some. I own and operate a building supply. We'll finish 40 years this year in business. I'm pro-business. And I have some neighborhood concerns. These hopefully won't come across as being questions, but just comments. The proposal, the way it reads to me, allows unlimited use as staff housing. First it's 40%, 60%, 80%, 100%. I find it almost hard to believe that you can spend millions of dollars and live in the basement of a 60-year-old block building and not have some other motive for what's going to happen to this piece of property. Others on the streets around us have a question about allowing this to be a restaurant. If it's a restaurant today, is it a restaurant next year, 10 years, 20 years? It's a restaurant forever. Is it a Mexican restaurant? Is it a barbecue? Are we going to smell chicharrones de carne cooking? You want to be on your back porch and participate in that? Probably not. Kind of curious about how you pay staff a living wage. Are you going to house them in there and they're going to be deducted from their work, their living quarters, or are they indentured servitude? Call them in and they're going to work it off? Are you going to match their taxes and withhold FICA and Social Security, or are we going to have more people on welfare? One other concern that one of the members of the council has personal experience with, and I do too, is a problem with grass growing in the backyard of this place. I think anytime it gets over 25 feet tall, it's a nuisance. Speaking of bamboo, we've protected, the UDO, or an ordinance in 2016, has protected this bamboo. It's recognized it as being an invasive species, but we don't have any way of eradicating it. I move that we eradicate it when property changes from private ownership to another private ownership. This takes out the city of Brevard's property that owns property that has bamboo on it that was written into that ordinance. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, that was everyone that signed up to speak at the public hearing. Council, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a- okay. All in favor?
Aye.
The hearing is closed. We will now move to comments and questions by council. And we will start with Mr. Wise.
First, I want to express my point of view that, Joy, you said you're coming in as outsiders. I don't understand that sentence. It means nothing to me. There are no outsiders as far as I'm concerned. You're welcome in our community. Everyone is welcome in our community. I don't know, I know that I drive or ride my bike or walk past this place all the time, but I don't really know much about the history of it. I'm going to count on you to fill me in on that, buddy. But I am absolutely in support of kind of revitalizing that structure, and I personally love the idea of a kind of neighborhood inn. Any way we can activate our communities to make them multi-use, more diverse, more culturally interesting, I think is a really positive for our community. That's all I've got.
Ms. Holder?
I too want to say welcome. I've been here almost 3.5 years, so there are no newcomers, but welcome to the community.
Mr. Morrow?
I particularly liked your aspect of sticking to the historical restoration. Thank you.
Mr. Daniel?
I look forward to seeing it restored. I also appreciate the vision that makes it more open to the community at large. I think it's always been a building that's been an interesting part of our architecture that's sort of been over there. So it's nice to bring it in.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I think it's great to see that a historic building that has a historic use that still makes sense, you know, in the current and future vision for that particular area is going to get another shot at having that historic use, and so thank you for stepping up to that. I do have a couple questions, I think, for our planning staff, but they're really just process questions and not about this specific project. So the underlying zoning district that you choose for a conditional zoning district, how do you weigh what might be the closest zoning to the intended use of the project versus the zoning of the surrounding area? Does that question make sense?
I think.
Okay.
So when we say it's a conditional district with a blank base, that kind of means two things. One, you've used that district as your starting point. So you start to tweak the conditional site-specific district as needed, using that base district's regulations as your starting point. The second, probably more important factor is that if something is not expressly called out in the conditional district, you just revert back to that district's typical rules. So if something isn't specified, that's what you look to for your regulations. So anything that's site-specific that needs its own consideration gets baked into the conditional district, but everything else just defaults to that base district that you call out.
Right. And given that, what we've talked about here before about some of the fun that the state is having with rezoning, how does that factor into conditional zoning districts? Or does it?
It doesn't. Are you referring to the nonconformity stuff?
Yeah.
It doesn't factor into this because we have explicit consent from
the property
owner.
Got it.
Yeah, so the current owner and the hopefully future owner have both signed the rezoning application, giving consent to proceed.
Understood. And then if this area were to be rezoned in the future, the far future, and the surrounding properties actually ended up in a different zoning district, does the underlying zoning district come into play with like spot zoning considerations, or is it once it's a conditional zoning district, you're sort of outside of the scope of that?
Yeah, so conditional districts you don't generally worry about those with spot zoning because each one of them is essentially its very own district.
Right.
So it's sort of spot zoning on its own face, but they've been considered each on their own merit and approved
Right.
So,
Okay. And then the angled parking that you mentioned, so that would remain in its current,
as it is currently configured.
right, okay.
And,
And since that's, sorry, I'm throwing things up here. So that, and the way we get that into the plan is it's part of the master plan for the conditional zoning district.
Correct.
And then if that were to be changed, needed to be changed in the future, that would have to be resubmitted as a master.
It depends on the
amendment.
degree of the change. There's two different levels of change. One of it, if it's a major modification, it comes back to you, essentially
Right.
as an entirely new district.
Yeah, okay. But something like that, if the parking were to be reconfigured.
Is if they're not enlarging it or wanting to do different uses that are not allowed currently, it would probably be a
Be a
minor.
minor change,
modification.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Right? No other questions from council? We will not vote on this tonight. This is the public hearing. And so this will come back at our next meeting for the final vote. All right, we will move on. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All right, next on is the consent and information agenda. First is the resolution authorizing the upset bid process for surplus property on James Street. Second is Council Rosenwald Community Advisory Board meeting minutes of February 20th of 2025. 3 is Council Rosenwald Community Advisory Board meeting minutes of March 20th, 2025. 4, Council Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee meeting minutes of April 16th, 2025. 5, Council Finance, Human Resources, and Citizen Appointment Committee meeting minutes of April 28th, 2025. 6, Correspondence, ABC Board meeting minutes of April 24th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent is approved. Moving on to unfinished business. Item 1 is the approve the FY 2025-2026 budget and ordinance. And our city manager will run us through this again.
Yes, ma'am. So I won't spend a whole lot of time dwelling on the particulars of my recommended budget because we've litigated those up and down over the last few months, other than to say that it maintains all service levels, no step backwards with regards to service. It endows your priorities, housing, downtown, trail development. It keeps our employees' compensation ahead of inflation and keeps our benefits package one of the best in the region. And all that for a modest cost of, for a house of $350,000, $96. Any additional tax that that house would see is attributable not to our budget, but to their new value. And so with that said, I just want to quickly use my time here to follow up on some of the questions that you gave me last time. In your package, you have 4 ordinances. Those ordinances represent the 4 different compensation possibilities that we talked about last time. The first attachment in your package is my recommended budget, which, as I said, keeps all employees ahead of inflation and keeps our benefits package one of the best in the region. It also keeps our pay ranges competitive. So that's sort of a forgotten benefit of this budget. We not only will increase the pay of our people who are actually making the money, but we'll increase the ranges that we establish for our various job classifications. And by going with my recommended budget, you will keep those ranges competitive so that future employees will also make a competitive wage. The second scenario is the scenario that sees an across-the-board compensation increase of 2.8% rather than 3.5%. This has pros and cons. The pro is that you can take the tax increase down from 2.75 cents to 2.5 cents. The cons are that we will have some employees that still make below the living wage for our area. The third option is a tiered option that sees savings so minimal it has no effect on the tax rate, and it has consequences like compression and pay inequality amongst our
job classifications. And the fourth scheme is another tiered scheme that will, again, save a quarter a penny on the tax rate increase, but cause serious salary compression issues in the lower grade. So much so that I think we would lose some employees if we passed this scheme. And then finally, Councilmember Holder and I spoke today, and she wanted me to explore a fifth scheme, and that was to reduce the across-the-board COLA from 3.5% to 3%, and then place the employees that are still not at living wage at the living wage. And we ran the numbers really quickly, Councilmember Holder, and we discovered that this would save $43,000 in the general fund, but it would cause the same compression issues as the other scheme. And so I think we would lose employees by doing this. And the effect of placing the employees that are below the living wage at the living wage would only last until we hired a new employee, in which case they would be coming in to our employment under the living wage. And so it would only be a temporary solution to our living wage goal. And so for those reasons, I stick with my recommendation that we raise employee compensation by 3.5%. Mayor Kopoloff asked last time if there were trims we could make to get the tax increase down to 2 cents. The answer is yes, but with trade-offs. The first trade-off would be that you'd have to choose one of those less expensive compensation packages with all their complications. And then the second thing is that you would either need to go through this budget with a scalpel and tell me what you want to cut, or give me and staff the responsibility to make across-the-board cuts. If we were to do that, we could find the money, but we would do it by cutting a pro-rated percentage from each department to meet our approximately $100,000 goal. And the areas we would touch in each department are undesignated operating dollars. And, that sounds like something that you might want to consider. But let me share with you some of the things we used undesignated operating dollars for last year. We installed security cameras at the police department and the depot. We paid for our traffic consultant who helps us with pedestrian safety. We fixed a stormwater issue on Allison Road. We filled potholes on state roads. We provided extended bulky item garbage collection after the storm, and many others. And so I think those undesignated dollars were well spent. And those are the types of things that we wouldn't be able to afford in the coming year. On top of that, we probably wouldn't be able to afford professional development for our employees. We wouldn't be able to remain members of professional associations that provide us valuable professional connections. And I think we'd not be able to do fun things for our workforce, like give birthday cards and Christmas cards. And those sound trivial, but those go a long way to maintaining a happy workforce. And so I would encourage you to stick with the recommended budget and not try to cut your way to a smaller tax rate. So the final thing that I wanted to follow up on was a request by Councilmember Holder about the nonprofit contributions. Approximately $111,000 worth of contributions to a dozen or so agencies across the town. She wanted to know what percentage our contribution, what percentage of the agency's budget our contribution consisted of, and I have that here. And as you will see, the all but one are less than 10%. And the one nonprofit agency that our contribution creates a significant percentage of their budget of is the farmers market. And so I offer this to you without commentary, just for information. And so with all that said, I encourage you to pass my recommended budget. If you choose to pass one of the other possibilities. If it is one of the three other alternatives that are included in your package, we can pass that tonight. If it's not, then we'll need to postpone the approval till next time so that staff and I can create the appropriate ordinance for that new option. And those are my comments, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. Council, you have a choice of options, but I need a motion in order to move forward to discussion. Does anyone wish to make a motion concerning one of the options on the budget?
I move we adopt the manager's recommended rate.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we will open it for discussion. Mr. Daniel.
Over 12 years ago, when I was thinking about running for this position, I was talking to the council member whose seat I would be taking if I ran and won, and he said, "Yeah, this is easy. There's nothing to it." I think of him often these days. This is not easy, obviously. The reality is that we're all facing, not just the city, but things cost more. It's a reality, and we have to be able to provide not only the services that are essential, but services that we promised, and also that we have raised taxes for in the past to provide for. I think this is about as close as we can get. We, at our budget retreat, the most perfect budget that we came up was way more onerous than this. For us to carve this down to get to this point took considerable effort. And so it's not been done lightly. But I feel like this is what we probably need to do, so. Thank you.
Mr. Morrow?
You know, I came in thinking I really liked the new fourth option. I thought it was creative. But if it creates compression issues that are sort of unintended consequences of it, then the difference is about $147,000. So, Gary, I'm there with you that we're not getting in this budget what I really wanted was the firemen. We're not getting the public works people we needed. We've made significant sacrifices in this budget. So,
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I'll repeat some of what Gary said, and that, you know, we've taken this incredibly seriously, and I appreciate the staff and their work on preparing the budget. You know, I think we've all talked about the transparency before, and I don't think we can say that enough, and that I appreciate the amount of transparency that we have. I also appreciate the timing of this whole process, that we've started fairly early in the year and had open meetings discussing the budget process all along the way for people to weigh in on. And people have, which I also think is great, that we've had public feedback. And some of that public feedback is what makes this, you know, these are hard decisions. You know that you're impacting your neighbors when you pass these budgets. But I do think that you know, maintaining the services that we have is incredibly important. Not slashing, you know, departments or positions or, you know, the things that our citizens have relied on in the past, and getting this down to about the leanest we possibly can, while maintaining those services, I think is incredibly important. I also want to repeat something we've talked about before, which is the tax assessment and the fact that preparing a budget in a year where the tax values have just increased a remarkable amount in 4 years is difficult. And again, there are two parts that determine how much your tax bill is. That's the value of your property and then the tax rate that we set up here. And the seriousness that we take the tax rate, we've had a months and months long process of putting together the budget, but what it comes down to is the tax rate, right? And you've got, we run elections to determine the 5 people that sit up here and set your tax rate, and the 5 people that sit down at the county and set your tax rate. But the whole other side of that equation is the tax value. And the amount of transparency involved in that process is severely lacking, if you ask me. There's no elected folks that that you get to stand in front of or vote in the voting booth to determine, who your tax assessment is. So, there's a lot more that I want to do personally and in my role on city council to investigate, the tax assessment process. And that's a learning curve for me personally, but I think we all need to be better informed on that. And I think there's some pretty serious discrepancies that we've just sort of started to scratch the surface on. And if I can, talk to our friends over at the county for just a second, the economic development, and I know I'm off topic, but stay with me here just for a second. The county, since the plants closed 25 years ago, and, 15 years, they've been on a noble goal of trying to spur economic development, particularly in commercial and industrial, because we lost a lot of that when the plants closed. And the goal there was not only to create jobs, and creating jobs is certainly, I would argue, is the more important goal, but their goal, as they've stated several times, is to diversify the tax base. Because if you only have residential properties, then the property tax that's paid is weighing on those our citizens. If you have commercial and industrial development, then some of that property tax can be shared amongst those other uses. And that's a good goal. But if we're pouring money into economic development to try to diversify the tax base, and yet every 4 years, we end up having an unequal reassessment that overvalues residences and undervalues commercial and industrial properties, well, then you've just undone all of that work that you just did. And you're essentially on like a treadmill, not going anywhere instead of going forward. And so, it's discussions like that I think I'm hopeful that we can have over the next little while. And there's things that we're doing behind the scenes, and hopefully, at the committee level, to keep looking at the tax assessment process, because again, we've taken the process we use to set the tax rate is incredibly serious and incredibly exhaustive and transparent. The other side of the equation should be just as much, if you ask me. So I look forward to doing that over the next few months. And I think those are all my comments. Thank you.
Ms. Holder?
I thought my budget at home was difficult. I'll start with the nonprofit organizations that we're supporting, and we're at 36% for one, and the highest on the others are 9%. I still hold to that we should not support more than 10% of anyone's budget. Regarding the salaries, and maybe you can help me understand the compressions that you may run into. What does that mean? many of our citizens are not getting increases. And trust me, employees, I agree, you all are worthy of increases. And I'm not saying that we don't increase. I'm just saying, bring the ones who are not earning the living wages to that point. And then the ones, everyone with the 3.3% that I suggested, and save the $43,000. Help me understand the compressions that you're speaking of. And, you know, I like the mayor's suggestions as well. And I promise you, if we get to 2% and you need Christmas cards, I will get them. If you need birthday cards, I will donate them. But I'm just looking at the larger picture, everybody in this city. And many of our residents are not getting increases each year, but we're asking them to pay more in taxes. I'm struggling with that.
Mr. Weiss?
I want to thank all of our public coming to speak to us. This has made this process both more challenging because we take to heart everything we hear, and made it a much more serious affair. I really struggled and thought a lot about these COLA allowances, and even up to today, I was kind of on the fence about it, and I have come down on the side of the fence that ultimately, if we don't have a city staff we can count on, we can build, who want to live here and will be productive, we don't have a city, and we don't have a city for the people who live here. We have to maintain, in a competitive environment, a reason for people to be here, and that's why we have set priorities to create housing, because a lot of the housing we're trying to create is so people can live in this county. I think everyone here would be shocked to know how few of our own employees, both in the city and county, cannot afford to live in the city governments they work for. I have heard everything that people have told us about the challenges they have personally. And as Aaron and as everyone has said, it kind of breaks our heart, but this is the realities of one of our roles up here. It's the most serious role we have to set. I'll also say that rightfully or wrongfully, we are beholden to any number of processes we have no control over. And Aaron spoke to reevaluation. We have any number of state laws we cannot change, adjust, or have any control over. Any number of federal laws. We're seeing new federal laws affecting us every day. So that makes this process not only more challenging, but also more heartbreaking, because if we had more flexibility, especially with reevaluation, we would have more tools. And we are limited, very limited. And I do want to applaud Wilson and the work of this council and the public. Wilson had mentioned using a scalpel. That we have used multiple scalpels on this thing to fine-tune it as tightly as possible without losing the things that we hear every day that people want or don't think we're doing enough of already. We hear every day about how the sewer lines aren't working, the water, the streets, and we're doing everything we can to keep these things moving forward. So I'm like, this is hard because, yeah, it's hard. Anyway, the other thing I do want to say is to Harvey specifically, I want to say thank you so much for coming and speaking to us and bringing up programs that we may not be aware of, or if we haven't done our work to get that out to the public, because that's one of the most powerful tools of bringing that up. That's all I have.
Any final comments from any council?
To Lauren's point that he just brought with Harvey's information, unfortunately, the deadline for this year was yesterday, June 1st. And so in order to apply for that, it would be for next year, they're, I Googled because Google knows everything. And so from January 1 until June 1st is when you have time to apply for help on your property taxes, if you're 65 and over.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
We have 4 ayes and 1 no. The motion carries. All right, moving on to our next item of unfinished business, the appointment to the Rosenwald Community Advisory Board. I believe Mr. Wise, as the chair of our HR and Finance Committee, is going to present this. Is that?
Okay.
Or am I surprising you? Perhaps Mr. Daniel wishes to do it. We discussed it this
Well,
morning.
I did have a little bit of a heads up.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've been in town for about 45 minutes.
All right, I will ask the vice chair of that committee then to.
Thank you,
present.
Mr. Daniel, for,
Well, this was brought up that Mr. Munchausen, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is actually not a resident of Rosenwald, and on research that was done by staff, the bylaws of that committee do say that person should be, have a, what does it say, residence or vested
Vested interest.
vested interest in the community, which would imply that he would not be eligible. But we also have a ordinance that says that we can make a change in those requirements by committee and by the council. And as he was the only application for that position, the Finance Committee recommends that we make that change and appoint him to that committee.
Do I have a motion to appoint Mr. Monshagan to the Rosenwald Advisory Board?
so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any additional comments? Mr. Wise?
I'll just say that he is also very active in Habitat for Humanity, especially in the Rosenwald community.
Ms. Holder?
No, I just was trying to, I read his application and wanted to get clarity on his vested interest in Rosenwald, since he's not a resident of Brevard.
Mr. Morrow?
I was impressed by his resume and his commitment to learning more about working with the community where he works.
Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, and I would say his interest is his work in the community with Habitat and his desire to further that effort, so.
Mr. Baker?
I don't have any comments.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Let's see, we've got 2 items of new business. Well, at this point, we will take a 10-minute break, and then we'll move into new business. So, thank you, everyone. 10 minutes. reconvene. Okay.
Our side.
All right, we are moving on to new business. Everybody back? Okay, we've got everyone. Our first item of new business is the Code of Conduct for City Council appointees. I believe that's our city manager.
Yes, so this is a Finance, Human Resources, and Citizen Appointment Committee referral, and so I want to ask the chair if he'd like to take the opportunity to share this, or would you like for me to?
Thanks, Wilson. You know, I don't know if you get enough experience doing this, so in order to help build your character, I'm going to let you take it.
Okay.
Even though I could certainly do it. But you go ahead.
As I said, this is a referral from the committee, and the subject matter here is based on the premise that, like council members and like employees, appointees are representatives of the city and therefore ought to be held to a high standard of ethics. And related to that, there ought to be a written mechanism for holding appointees accountable should they violate that standard. So that's what this proposed action is intended to do. And I won't go through all the details, but I'll just make a few explanatory comments here. The committee reviewed this proposal over several meetings and made the following policy recommendations. One, that all committees, except ABC, because there is additional state law governing them, and we will be back with other ABC suggestions later, but all other committees, whether they are statutory committees like the Planning Committee or elective committees like the Housing Committee, and non-elected appointees to outside groups that you all make, ought to be treated the same, even though the case law suggests that only appointees to statutory committees are entitled to due process. Number two, that the tenets listed in the document entitled Expectations for Brevard City Council Appointees, which Becky's going to bring up on the screen, constitute the code of conduct for all those appointees. Number three, that the actions listed in the document titled Standards of Conduct for City Council Appointees constitute the actionable behaviors. Note that there are two tiers of actions here, just like there are for employees. The first tier are actions that an appointee may be warned about before actions. The second tier are acts that would permit you, council, the appointing authority, to take immediate action. 4, that an extra level of accountability be established for the council itself, planning board, and board of adjustment. And that extra level of accountability is a disclosure of property ownership and business ownership as further defined in the text of the next attachment, or the attachment up on the screen there. The things listed there are the standards for defining a conflict of interest in the state statutes. So this disclosure requirement would just lay things on the table earlier so that we won't have to deal with recusal questions later in the game. We will be able to predict whether there's a coming conflict of interest with this disclosure, rather than having to hear about it at the last minute. And 5, the proposal authorizes me to investigate claims of code of conduct violations and make a recommendation to you for action, and I will consult the attorney when necessary. And so all those things together constitute the newly proposed code of conduct for city council appointees, the actionable acts that you all can use to hold appointees accountable, and an extra level of accountability with a disclosure requirement for you, the planning board, and the Brevard Board of Adjustment. But I think the most important thing of all is the code of conduct that ensures that our appointees are held to a high standard of behavior and that they will represent you and us at the city of Brevard in a way that we can be proud of. So that is my summary of the committee's recommendation, and I ask that you consider approving it tonight.
Council, do I have a motion approving the resolution establishing the code of conduct and oversight procedures for city council appointees?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, open it for discussion. Mr. Daniel?
Well, I have a little bit different slant on this. I feel like this is really a code of ethics and really lends seriousness to the role that the members of these committees play as they're helping the council make decisions. And it seems quite reasonable that there be such a thing. So.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I think it's good that we are taking this step. I do have a couple of questions on mostly, well, here I am talking about process again, but the process for the disclosure forms and just how that works with current staff. Is it staff that is reaching out to each member and asking them to fill out and receiving those forms back?
Will be Denise, and she'll have a simple form that she'll ask folks to fill out in return within 30 days of the passage of this item, and then again within 30 days of any new appointment, or in you all's case, election.
Right. And then you mentioned the potential consequences being determined by you and the attorney. That we don't have that. That's not a part of this that we're passing tonight. Is that correct?
It is. If you'll look up
Okay.
into
Did I miss that?
the table there, the guideline.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah.
Got it.
But the final decision will be you all's on whether to take action or not.
Okay. And is there a role in that for the HR Finance and Appointment Committee, do you see? Or you see this as outside of their purview?
I think that was a matter we talked about at the committee, and they recommended that I be endowed with that responsibility.
Okay. Okay.
You can
Those
only
are
have so much power.
no. Those are all my questions.
Okay, Mr. Morrow?
Well, it's used to being on the Land of Sky Rural Planning Organization within CDOT. We were required to do this for the state ethics office every year, and they actually give us a list of questions to make sure we don't own property where they've got some project or something. So, and the mayor does this as well. So, so I think we're catching up.
Ms. Holder?
Just simple questions. Is this new to council, or is this something that you've revised? Was it something that was already in place and you're revising it, or is this a brand-new process?
I think it's brand new, but I want to defer to the experienced folks on the council and ask them, because my understanding is that the sort of expectation before was that appointees would follow the sort of general code of ethics of the city. And this proposal establishes a specific code of conduct and code of ethics for them. But what is brand new and what's never existed before is an accountability procedure and the ability to take action on appointees who violate the code of ethics.
Okay. And will appointees and council sign that we agree with this? How does that work?
Yes, ma'am. That's a similar practice to what we do with employees. Before they come to work, they sign an acknowledgement that they've read the personnel policy and that it applies to them. They're subject to those rules. And we'll ask our appointees to do a similar thing with this.
Okay.
Mr. Weiss?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's important for everyone to display or adhere to and to display a code of ethics. Civic duty is very important, but it's not just enough to volunteer or be a part of the government. I think we also have to display that we're very serious about that, anyone who wants to be involved. So I think this is a great step forward.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're moving on to our second item, and that is the fire engine replacement and funding strategy. And I believe our interim fire chief, Bradley Elmore, is going to walk us through this.
while he's coming up, I'll make some introductory comments. Bradley's going to share a little bit about the need for this new engine and the state of the fire engine industry and why it's important for us to commit soon. But I'll cut to the chase on the financial piece. We'll have enough money in the budget 3 years from now to cover about 3/4 of the cost of this new engine. And so the question for you tonight is, are you willing to commit the other 1/4 now, knowing the risk of waiting that he's going to talk a little bit about? So Chief, if you would please share what you know with us.
Okay, what we're replacing is a 2004 American LaFrance engine. We have two of those. We bought them at the same time, in 2004, 2005 year. And one has 40,000 miles, the one we're replacing. The other has 22,000 miles. Well, you ask 40,000 miles, that doesn't sound like a lot. The way fire trucks work is when we crank them up, we go to the scene, they sit, they idle, they can pump for hours, and then they shut down. We bring them back and park them. It's hard on vehicles. It's not like driving your car day to day, getting the fluids going. It's all an emergency anytime they go out. So we're replacing that one, which is 21 years old. It'll be 25 years old when the new one arrives, and that would be in 2029. So what's happening now is, before we could get a fire truck in a year and a half. Now it's 3 years, 4 years, depending on, ever since COVID, everything changed, and now things are taking so long. So it's got us behind. We had a replacement schedule, and the way the schedule works, we base this on NFPA, which is a national recommendation to the fire service, is a frontline apparatus is 15 years frontline service. After 15 years, you want to move it to reserve status. That gets you to 25 years. After 25 years service, you want to take it completely out of service. It's obsolete for municipal firefighting. Not to say that a smaller volunteer fire department could buy that apparatus and use it further, but the way we run apparatus, 25 years is life expectancy of that truck. So that, like I said, that truck will be 25 years old in 2029, along with the other truck that was the sister truck to that. On top of that, we have another engine that is our frontline engine now that is 16 years old. And what it's getting replaced with is the one that's coming in right after July. They're painting it now, so we're looking at maybe the middle of July. That's replacing the 1995 four-wheel drive that we did back in 2022, I think it was. It's just now getting here. That will go to our front line, so we'll take that 16-year-old truck and put it to a secondary truck. So buy some more time for that also. So that's where we stand now. The problems we're having with that truck now, and both of them, it's kind of funny when we have problems with one, we have problems with the other 2 weeks later because they are sister trucks. So we're having electrical issues. The braking, we've just now got that fixed. And what a new truck does is it adds ABS braking system, automatic firefighter seat belts and alarms, things these trucks do not have. They have seat belts, but they don't have alarms telling you that the seat belt's on, the seat belt's wrong. It doesn't have airbags, the proper reflective striping, the lights, everything changes, and you can, it changes yearly. So you can see when we order trucks, and now it's taken us 4 years, 5 years, that things change in that time. Everything's computer-based now, so we all know with our computers, things wear out really quick. Our cell phones, they're obsolete in 2 years. Same thing with a fire truck. So that's where we're at. Another important factor with these trucks is all the new trucks are governed at 60 mile an hour. These two trucks here are not governed. And that's a safety factor to us at the fire department, because the guy gets in it, yeah, he does everything he should, but you get excited. The truck goes faster than it should. That truck will probably run 90 miles an hour. That is totally unsafe. They didn't have rules back then. Now we have rules. So they're going at 60 mile an hour. So that's safer on the guy, has all the alarms and bells, tells him when he's getting to that speed. It has stability control. When the truck starts leaning, things like that, it alarms, letting him know all these things to slow down or whatever he needs. So where we're at now is $1 million for an apparatus. This one we bought in 22, we paid $847,000. It's going to continue to go up. The manufacturer that the truck that's coming in, they've assured us if we go that route with the bidding process or however we choose to purchase it, they've assured us that the price, when we sign the contract, that's the price in 2029. They're not going to add to this. A lot of manufacturers are adding to it now. They're telling you when you sign, but if prices go up, they hit you at that time. And we as Brevard can't do that. So that's where we stand on that. Really good vendor. And the last thing, I've been here 34 years. Council will give us everything we needed, equipment-wise, top-notch equipment. We can't function without top-notch equipment. So we appreciate you considering this.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
So he made an allusion to something that I want to reiterate, and that is that we will competitively shop for this truck. But the best deal might not be the lowest price. It might be the lowest price with the best terms. But we will do our due diligence to make sure that we are getting the best deal for the city of Brevard. And then finally, I'll conclude by saying the state of the industry is so serious right now that Congress is actually considering holding anti-monopoly hearings against the fire truck industry. Because used to be dozens of makes, now there's a few. They have a stranglehold on the industry, and the fact that municipal departments like us have to wait 4 years to get a truck is a safety issue for many folks. And so Congress might be turning the screws on this industry here in the next year or so. And so with that, that's the conclusion of our comments.
All right, so Mr. Manager, you are looking for counsel and whether or not they are willing to authorize staff to begin the procurement of the fire truck. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Counsel, do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Wise?
This is just out of curiosity, Chief Elmore. Thanks for everything you had to say. What kind of engine does a fire truck have? Is it like a V28?
A 500 to 525 horsepower diesel engine. And what that does, it operates the truck, but it also operates the pump.
Oh, it's the same.
Same motor
Gotcha.
operates the pump, which entails gets us our water through the pump and out to the fire.
Okay, and my second question is, can we ride in the new fire truck?
All our trucks now are equipped to ride 6 personnel.
Excellent.
And that was something that we planned 15-odd years ago for the future of ours. Eventually, it's going to be do you want to hear this, a career to fire department? We'll have people on all those trucks. So, and we plan ahead. So we want to be able to ride. Plus, it's safer for our guys. I'd rather have all the guys on that one truck going than all the personal vehicles going here and there. So if we do plan ahead for that.
I don't want to say that my vote is conditional upon it, but I want to ride in the fire truck.
We'll get you a little hat, Lauren. We'll get you a hat.
I want a hat. That's all I have. Thank you. It's a very serious discussion.
Ms. Holder?
Well, I want to ride in it too, and so does Mason. Mason is 7 years old. He'll be 8 Friday. That would be just the happy time of his life. So, thank you. When you get now I don't know anything about cars except to put gas in them. So when we're talking about an engine, I'm thinking an engine in another body, but you're talking about a whole new truck. Okay. What year will it be? Will it be a 20?
Well, they'll base it on the chassis, which would be we ordered to be a 2026 chassis, but it'll be a 2029 when we get here, if that makes any sense at all.
Okay.
And something else to add to that is when we started this, or when I started in 91, we run 200 calls a year. We're pushing 3,000 calls a year. A lot of wear and tear on these trucks. We run everything from assist inlets, fire alarm, structure fire, put smoke detectors up. I mean, there's numerous things because these trucks are on the road all the time.
Yeah.
And they weren't before.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Morrow?
Chief, I think he needs to ride in the 1925 fire truck.
I'd do that. That'd be fine.
No, thank you.
The first one.
You probably rode in it.
Probably did.
Anything else? Okay. Mr. Daniel?
I have no comment.
Mr. Baker?
I had some comments, but now I was going to say that we just passed the code of ethics, and I'm wondering if Lauren may have violated those codes by
It's fluid, Aaron, it's fluid.
requesting a ride. No, but I do have a serious question related to the fiscal impact. In your note, it says, this plan would give us the capacity to cover 2/3 of the cost of the truck. Is there a reason why? I mean, our current agreement is to cover 55% of the truck. Is there a reason why we're planning on covering more than that at that time? Or am I reading that wrong?
Let me get my bearings here. That is in reference to the combined city-county contribution.
Okay.
Yeah, so between the two of us, we'll need to come up with another.
The
Another.
final third.
And as a matter of fact, I've revised that number to 1/4 because
Right.
we do plan on making some money off the sale of the old truck, which will cut down on the amount we owe by a little bit.
Okay. So you're referring to the total cost of the truck, not our individual
Yes, sir.
portion?
Correct.
Okay. Those are all my questions.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, that is the end of new business, and we are moving into remarks and future agenda considerations. And we will start with Mr. Morrow.
No comment.
Good. Ms. Holder?
Yes. So, I know many people have left already, but I want to say thank you to those who came out. And my heart and prayers go out to the young boy who was attacked and his family. I thought about his mom immediately and him. And if I'm not mistaken, is he special needs? Is that what I heard? And I have a godson, and I thought about him, and it's so personal that I continue to pray for the family and him, that he will be able to heal. And Randy mentioned that Sunday, but he doesn't know it yet, but his pastor will be speaking for that morning worship service. And I just happen to be his pastor, so we're looking forward to that on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock during Juneteenth celebration.
Mr. Weiss?
Yeah, boy, there's been a lot just in this meeting to kind of, I think about and ponder about. We made 2 really magnificent proclamations this year again for 2 groups of people that have traditionally been underserved, and we're acknowledging their importance and their richness in our community. At the same time, we experienced an assault on a teenager, a child, by other children in our community, which boggles the mind. And I do want to make sure we keep in mind that children aren't born with hate. They learn hate. And that is the real problem, is where is that hate coming from? Where we hear it all the time. We either consciously or unconsciously inflict it upon our own children. We heard a lot about the power of community coming together during Helene, and how we're all neighbors, and how we all want to reach out and help each other. And then we have children attacking children, and we have us attacking each other, and we have rhetoric about taking this from other people. I want us to think about what it means in a community to live together and to grow together, and to understand the diversity of our communities and why it makes our community powerful. We're very lucky, I think, to live in a town that does have the diversity, especially in a southern town. But even today, we heard talk about outsiders being here. I won't have it. I don't want to hear about it. So let's remember about Pride Month. Let's remember about Juneteenth. Those are really important. I really want to celebrate those. And it's at the same time, we have to find a way to end this hateful rhetoric. Man, we have children attacking children. It's ridiculous. I have more thoughts, but that's it for me.
Mr. Daniel,
I have no comments.
Mr. Baker.
Yeah, a couple things. Obviously, other council members have talked about the horrible thing that happened at Franklin Park, and yeah, I think boggles the mind is the right phrase that Lauren used. It's hard to wrap your mind around something so awful. And, you know, those of us with kids, it's incomprehensible to even think about. And you know, the fact that everybody involved in that situation is a child makes it all the more difficult to reckon with. And, you know, I think as a parent, thought a lot about, you know, my son when we were sort of trying to digest that news. And, you know, parenting is all, you know, obviously first and foremost about loving your kids. And there's another side to it, though, which is holding them accountable. And I want to thank the police department, both the officers and the investigators who worked on that. And you know, the fact that people are underage involved, you know, brings a whole nother element to be reckoned with. And you know, the professionalism that was exemplified in handling that situation, but also, you know, and I know there was some criticism on this, but the swiftness with which charges were brought and announced in a sensitive way, obviously, because people are underage. I mean, I think that was handled very well. So I want to thank them for that. You know, that was an unfortunate. Well, it was horrible and unfortunate for a million reasons, but one of the things that made it awful for the whole community was we were coming off White Squirrel Weekend, and by all accounts, it was one of the best ones yet. There are new challenges and things that we can improve upon, but anytime you can invite thousands of people to your small town and keep everybody safe, and keep everybody having a great time and go away with a great impression, I think deserves to be celebrated. And I want to thank Nicole and the Heart of Brevard and all of the volunteers that worked so hard at that event. It's amazing what our town can do when we are welcoming and we do jump in and help with a volunteer effort. But obviously, there are a lot of city staff involved in an event that large as well, including the police department, the fire department, public works guys out there, and others. You know, and the fact that we have a thriving downtown in the year 2025 should never be taken for granted. There are lots and lots of places that had a downtown and no longer do, or never had a downtown and wish they did, like Mills River. Okay. So we should never take that for granted. It's an amazing thing. It's a reason why a lot of us love living here. And so thank you to the Heart of Brevard, especially for putting that on. It's really like the highlight of the year. I also want to thank all those involved in the Memorial Day service on Monday. I saw the police department and the fire department out there closing streets and making sure people were safe. But that was a great community effort. Representatives from the county and the city there, and obviously our veteran organizations. And it's wonderful that we can, and there are some divisive voices out there that suggest that having White Squirrel Weekend and Memorial Day is not possible to do together, but I went to both. I was at every single second of White Squirrel working, and I was also at the Memorial Day event. Yes, Harvey, I do work for a beer company, but they were both well-attended and, again, professional and safe and just great events. So I think it's great that our city can do something like that and celebrate both and acknowledge both in the same weekend. On the budget, that last item we just talked about, the fire engine, and I'm glad the chief mentioned the increased costs because, again, we take the budget extremely seriously. We're not trying, there is not a lot of, or any real goodies to be found in that budget. And increasing costs on things like the fire truck that's going to show up to your house when you need it the most, those have to be paid for. And we take that seriously. We don't take it lightly. And, I want to commend the staff for this budget season. I know it was difficult. And I think all you got to do is look across town at what the county is proposing in their budget to know that all counties, all cities are dealing with the same sort of environment out there and finding out ways that we can ask the absolute least from our citizens, but maintain the services that we have. And I think those are all my comments. Thank you.
Mr. Attorney.
I'll just remind everybody of, we have 2 closed sessions tonight. I will also just like to state for the record that when I was on city council, I'm the only sitting council member ever to climb to the top of the ladder truck.
Ooh.
So you got to do that before you get a ride.
Here, I'll do it. We're going to the top. All the way.
All the way.
Well, I want to be 1 foot higher than him.
You're already taller than me, so yeah, you got that.
Madam Clerk.
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Manager.
I also want to thank employees who were involved in White Squirrel Weekend and to send my thanks to the Brevard Police Department for their thorough investigation of the unfortunate assault that took place last weekend. I talked to them while they were investigating, and they took it very seriously and very personally, and I want to thank Tom and Aaron, all your folks who were involved in that. They were thorough and thoughtful about it, and I think that's important because the real way you ensure justice for victims is to build cases that can withstand the scrutiny of the legal system, and they did that, and so I appreciate that. Speaking of public safety, the Transylvania County Sheriff's Office midnight patrols will start at 12:01 a.m. on June the 17th. And then finally, the last thing I have to share today is that I'm doing my coffee a little bit differently this week, Harvey. Instead of having coffee with the city manager, I'm going to have trivia with the city manager at Oscar Blues at 5 o'clock on Thursday. So come and join me for some French fries and some trivia, Harvey, on Thursday. And that's all I got.
Yeah, I also just want to express the absolute shock and heartbreak about the incident that happened with that young man, that young child, and the fact that it was other children that were involved. I mean, it is absolutely shocking, and it was wonderful to see our community come together Saturday on short notice to really support that family and to let them know that they are valued and to just surround them with love and hope, and that, this is a great community. And the police did an amazing job. Within a couple of days, they had it investigated, and not just our police department, but it was working with, I believe, the sheriff's office, with the SRO, with the DA's office, with the juvenile justice system. All of our law enforcement agencies really acted swiftly. And as the manager said, the best thing we can do is to make sure we have a rock-solid case that goes forward so that when charges are applied by juvenile justice, that they stick. And that's what we did. And now it's in the justice system, and the people, those young people that did this, will be held accountable. But the real question that we, as a community, have to ask ourselves is, how does this happen? How do we have children who don't value one another, who don't respect one another, who think that this level of not just demeaning somebody else, but physically attacking somebody else is okay? And I think we as a community have to take a hard look at that. And that's not down on the police, that's not down on just elected officials. That's us as a community. What are we teaching our children? What are they seeing? And I really challenge everybody to just sort of look into your heart and say, you know, how do we get past this? How do we get past some of the ugliness? How do we stop demeaning one another just because we're different? Because that's what they see, and children learn from the adults. And when they see that, you know, they are not mature enough to be able to put that in any type of a context. And so every one of us needs to really look at, how do we change that? How do we respect one another? How do we build that into our school system? And how do we make sure we have support systems for our youth that are there when they are stressed, when they are having a trauma, when they do express frustration or rage, so that they can learn how to deal with that and all. And so that's the challenge as we go forward, that we as a community really need to be asking ourselves. And my heart just goes out to that mother, the family, that child. You know, I just want to wrap my arms around them and say, you know, you are so valued here. So, you know, yeah, I can't even talk about it anymore. I do want to thank our staff. We had a wonderful White Squirrel Weekend and Memorial Day. You know, we have two real objectives when we hold a big festival like White Squirrel Weekend. One, it's to bring our community together. It brings people together in what is very much a friendly community event. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You have free music. You have free events for the children. And so it's a way for our community to really celebrate, connect with one another. But it's also very important for our businesses, because this does bring in visitors. And our businesses, folks, have been hurting. We need to help them get their sales up. Some businesses are pretty much, you know, wondering if they're going to survive. To keep our downtown vibrant, to keep our community vibrant, we have to support our businesses. So yeah, we have some inconveniences. We had closed roads. You know, you had to drive around. We had people parking in a lot of places where, okay, maybe we better have a better parking plan next year. I mean, every year after this event, we have an after-action meeting with Heart of Brevard, and we look at what can we do better. You know, yes, there were small incidents here and there with people not following all of the rules, but ultimately, it was an amazing 3-day festival with, I think there were tens of thousands of people there, all of which were having a wonderful time, and it was so impactful for our businesses, it really was. And then we had Memorial Day. You know, we separate the two because they are so totally different. And as a veteran, I thought we had a wonderful Memorial Day. I was very honored that Colonel Chapman introduced me as the speaker, okay? We are very different politically, but we are two veterans. We are brothers and sisters in arms, and I will be there to have his back against anybody that attacks my fellow veterans. We are one. And if you haven't served, you don't understand that bond. I mean, that bond is there. I would be there for Harvey, my fellow veteran. Harvey and I don't agree on everything, but I think we agree on that, you know. And that was a wonderful, patriotic community event. It wasn't partisan. It wasn't about anything other than honoring the heroes who gave their lives for our country. And I was proud to stand there with my fellow veteran, Colonel Chapman. We have a number of things coming up. We have Juneteenth, so I do hope everyone will join us at Juneteenth. I guess we better learn to dance there, Tyree, huh? I know. I better have some lessons before then. And of course, we've got 4th of July coming up. It's hard to believe 4th of July is a month away. But we will, again, be having a community celebration for the 4th of July. We're going to have events downtown. We're going to have a square dance. We're going to do things a little differently this year. But it's another wonderful time when we bring our community together and we celebrate what's so wonderful about our country. And that is that we are the United States of America, and we are free, and we do value liberty, equality, justice, and we respect every single person in this community. So join me on the 4th of July, join me on Juneteenth, and as always, you can come talk to me at my next Meet the Mayor. I don't have trivia, and I don't have any French fries. You only get, and you just get to talk to me. But it's going to be in the evening. It's 5 to 7. I try to vary the days and the times so that different demographics can come. But it is just an open, transparent way to talk to one another as community members. And I encourage you to take advantage of it. There's no agenda. I just want to hear from you, and hopefully you'll listen when I, have things to say to you. So all of that coming up. So thank you, everybody. It was wonderful to see so many folks here tonight. And I think with that, we need a motion to go into closed session for potential litigation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, please turn off the broadcast and please clear the room.
I didn't bring it up in my.